Tandem Nomads, episode 48.
I've always loved writing, but I've never, ever thought of myself as a writer. I just knew I wanted to get better at it. And so sure enough, when you put yourself into the daily discipline of everything, I think, you do grow in that. The deeper you're willing to go, the more universal your story becomes.
Welcome to Tandem Nomads, where inspiring expat partners from around the world share with you how they turn the challenges of relocation into great opportunities. So are you following your partner abroad for his or her career? Then Tandem Nomads is the place for you. Go to tandemnomads.com and sign up for the newsletter. Nomad Nation, before we go into the topic of this episode, I have a quick announcement for you. We are going to have a voice party very soon. A huge party on the Tandem Nomads podcast where we can hear and where you can share your voice with us. I really can't wait to celebrate with you this voice party where you can send me a little message and I will share it on Tandem Nomads for the 50th episode of Tandem Nomad. So for more details, stay put until the end of this episode. I will share all the information with you on how you can do that and celebrate with us and be part of this great voice party. Hello Nomad Nation, this is Amel Deraghi and today's episode is the second part of the interview with Marilyn Gardner. She has such an amazing journey that I really wanted to make sure that we understand all the different factors that led her to be where she is today. And last week we saw her journey traveling from Pakistan, the US, and then back to Pakistan, Egypt, and now back to the US. She did it as a third culture child and then as an expat spouse, being a nurse. You know how it's difficult for nurses to be able to travel and keep their jobs, and she has managed to do that by blending her multicultural experience with her nursing background, and she shares with us how she managed to do that, and I highly recommend you to go back to that episode if you haven't heard it. But today's episode, I wanted to focus on her writing experience. She has been a very successful blogger, but also a writer, and she shares with us that experience in this episode, but also her repatriation experience that is by itself another challenge. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this episode with you, and let's dive in.
As I think about this whole conversation in Tandem Nomads, I think that sometimes as nomads, we're not aware of what we're developing, kind of urge people to take that step back, and even if you need to begin to write it down and think about these different things, I think it's important.
Additionally to realizing how to blend your skills, you've developed new skills too, and maybe you had them and just exploded them more. Is the writing part, because you added an additional aspect to your career is the writing. So could you take us through that path? You insist a lot on, stepping back, looking at our skills and writing them down. This is what you did, but you also made it public and made a book out of it. Could you take us through that journey?
Yes, it was so unexpected and such a gift. So in 2010, I go to Pakistan. I come back, and this has been such a rich experience. I had always wanted to work in refugee or displaced people situations. And here I got to go back to this place I absolutely love and do that. When I returned, it was hollow, because I didn't get to share it with anyone. I didn't get to speak about it. There was sort of this nothing. I went to work the following Monday after I returned, and I wanted to burst into tears. I thought this was so meaningful, and it feels so hidden. So on I think it was New Year's Day, I said to my daughter, I want to start a blog. Now, my oldest daughter is amazing at social media. She's a fantastic writer. And she didn't laugh at me. She actually encouraged me, and she gave me tips. She said, okay, Mom, if you're going to do this, then you need to do it right. Don't go on Blogger. You need to make it professional. She just gave me some really good tips. Wow. So I read up on it, and the next thing you know, I had produced my first blog post. And, people read it like more than my mom. And my mom's amazing. But it was kind of fun that other people. Well, then, as I began writing more, I brought in this Pakistan experience, and there were many people from my past that were really interested in this. So there was this natural audience. But then you have to grow beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. I couldn't write about this time in Pakistan forever. What would this look like? But I just began, doing this every single day. I've always loved writing, but I've never, ever thought of myself as a writer. I just knew I wanted to get better at it. And so sure enough, when you put yourself into the daily discipline of everything, I wish I'd do that around exercising, but I don't actually. And you do grow in that. Yeah. So then, it began being wider read, really surprised me. And 3 years later, I was kind of looking at it thinking, wow, this has become something. I don't want to just lose this. So I began thinking about what might this look like if it was a book, if I could, because what I did find is that my audience ended up being this global audience. I didn't set out for that to be the case, but I ended up writing a blog post that really resonated with third culture kids. And that sort of put me on the map, if you will.
What was the title of that blog?
It was called Saudage.
Saudage?
Right. So it was called Saudage, a word for the third culture kid. Okay. And as sometimes happens, social media is so fickle, and blogging is so fickle. I think I spent about 10 minutes writing that piece. But my husband found this word, saudade. It's a Portuguese word, and it came from the diaspora, I believe, in the 12th century. And it's a wistful longing for what no longer exists. And so my husband comes home and he says, I have a word for you. And he tells me about this word. And I just looked at him and I said, yes, that's my word. Oh. And that night I write this blog post. And evidently, it resonated with many of us that, this saudade, this wistful longing. But if you're really honest with yourself, what you're longing for no longer exists. And so I just wrote about this and my feelings toward it. And so that sort of put me on the map in terms of a third culture kid or expatriate audience. So
Absolutely fascinating. Well, yeah. Is your blog post still up there?
It is. It is. Actually,
I'm going to share it on the show note page of this episode. So I'll put the link.
I would love that. It's actually in the book as well, but I've continued to make it public on the blog just because it did resonate and because it feels like it's because of that I kind of thought, okay, maybe I have something in this. And so then I began to think, okay, well, what might a book look like? That came up with the title Between Worlds, thought, okay, I'd want it on sections. And, I look back on it and I think there's so many things I would do differently. And I'm actually in the place of writing, I'm in the editing process of my second book. And it's much harder because it's not blog posts that were already written and just needed to be edited and put together cohesively. This is just a really personal, more memoir style, and so that's much more difficult. I'm having fun with it. In fact, just today earlier, I was working on it. I got it back from the editor, and now I'm reviewing all that whole. So
your second book is ready to be out soon.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And that I am excited about because it's much more about Pakistan. There's a lot more about Pakistan, and So I'm excited about that one as well. I also feel really invested. Like the first one felt like such a surprise. It's like, well, maybe no one will read it, but I'm excited anyway. And then people actually did. And at least some people did. But this one feels much more personal and like I've really invested in it. So it feels a bit scarier.
Yeah, Marilyn, there's so many, your story is just so inspiring, and there's a lot of spiritual and inspiring words and things that you're sharing with us here. And I hope, Nomad Nation, that you're really embracing all of this. I just want to maybe highlight some factual things that I think have been useful to you. I loved when you said how you've been disciplined about writing, and that must have been what made you successful at the end, the discipline that you've been putting into it.
Absolutely. Although I will say that it was like once I started writing, it was like something exploded inside me. It's like, oh, so every single day I found something to write about. The discipline piece was huge. So one thing about me, I am not a disciplined person. I don't think I've ever done anything in my life every single day. But when I committed to writing, I really did. That first year, whether I posted or not, I wrote every single day and sometimes twice a day. It was like I was just so determined. And it taught me something about myself. And I wish I would translate it to other things in my life, actually. So this is a good conversation to have. But I remember after a year of blogging where I kind of did this confessional blog post, and I said, I need to let you in on a secret to the audience. I have never done anything every day of my life. And this I did. I did it every day. So it did not come naturally. I feel like I so benefited from it. I do feel like I'm in a different place writing now, where because it was so public, I needed to take a step back and say, okay, this has been so public. I need to start writing in private a bit. I need to realize that everything, that some of my inspiration is not going to come anymore. I still do the discipline of writing every day, but I don't make it public like I did. I think I needed to, I needed to that first bit. I don't think I would have done it. It was almost like this invisible audience that I didn't even really have for a while, but I thought I had it. Was this impetus? So it was. I mean, this is so terrible. I'm realizing how ego-driven this was.
Oh no!
But it was like, oh, this invisible audience will be waiting for me, And so at least it got me writing, and really instilled in me the discipline.
Oh, it's really great what you're saying here, because the whole discipline thing. I believe that it's really important to reach success in general. And success is not just about money. It's about well-being. It's about, reaching our fulfillment. And we have to commit to what we want to achieve in our lives. And you did commit to that by implementing that discipline of writing every day. It can be something else for other people. In my case, Tandem Nomads would have never existed if I didn't commit to wake up every morning at 5:30 and go for a run and clear my head. And I think that has helped me tremendously in clearing my head from all the things of the day that will, stopping me from making Tandem Nomads happen. So I think discipline is really a key that we haven't mentioned a lot in Tandem Nomads before, and I'm very happy that you brought it up here. It can be anything, not just writing, but just committing at the end of the day. You did commit to your goal. This is very important.
I'm actually sitting here just nodding my head. I wish you could see me nodding my head.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And there's another message that's very important for me to share through the episodes of Tandem Nomads is embracing technology. And you did it, you did embrace technology by accepting to blog and learn about it, learn how to blog. Your daughter was there to help you, and you just went out there and didn't resist much. Today you're realizing you also want to write less publicly, but the step you took to start blogging and sharing your story online has made you and took you where you are today.
Absolutely. I would not have met you. I would not have met
No.
families in global transition without it. All of these things were absolutely through technology and through saying, okay, I may be in my 5th decade, but I can learn about this. And oh, it's so funny. One of the first things that I did was, I had read that links are good. What I didn't realize that I was linking to only like WordPress things initially. And my daughter, after I think a couple months, said, Mom, about that professional piece, you might want to take out some of those links. All they do, no, Wikipedia. They took people to Wikipedia. Every single link was
I was
Wikipedia
wondering,
link.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was too funny.
So interesting. You should come back to Tandem Nomads, make us a workshop on how to blog.
Oh, I did learn a lot. I really learned a lot.
So is there any tips you would give us and give Tandem Nomads and other expat spouses who want to build their presence online? What made you suddenly have so much exposure online?
Right. So honestly, I think it's just being regularly out there. I think that, one of the things that happened for me was WordPress. I use the WordPress platform, and I really highly recommend it. One of the things that happens in the WordPress platform is they do something called Freshly Pressed. And it's of their, millions of bloggers out there. They highlight 12 blogs a day that, that they find. Well, somehow they found one of mine. And so they call it Freshly Pressed. And so suddenly I was getting this. It was in the middle of the uprising in Cairo. My daughter was there, and I had written about it. And so it was very relevant for the day. And I suddenly got complete strangers reading. But what I found, and that was incredibly exciting, but what I found was as exciting as it was to get Freshly Pressed, the more I wrote, the more I would end up finding things that resonated with people. And so how much more exciting was it when, without being freshly pressed, readers would come because they were really interested, because you tapped into something. I read something interesting recently. It was, the deeper you're willing to go, the more universal your story becomes. And that's not a Marilyn original at all. It's
very nice.
But I love that. And I've thought about that as I think about blogging, as I think about writing this new book. The deeper I'm willing to go, the more universal my story can become. And I would say that definitely about blogging, but I would also say about social media. It can be such a gift to those of us who have lived all over. I don't think, I'm not worried, honestly, about us living online and having our friendships only online at all. I don't think that certainly hasn't happened with me. And I don't know other, global nomads who just have this presence online and nothing else. I think of everyone, we know how to use it in the best way possible because we know how to bring people together that are from these divergent worlds that we live in, and we bring them together. So suddenly I'll be connecting someone who's living in the UK with someone who's living in Canada, with someone who's living in, Portugal, and these connections happen. So, and then the fun thing also is when you get to meet them in person. And so, of course,
Yeah, like us.
yes, exactly. It's so cool. And
Yeah,
now,
I'm gonna explain a bit the story because I realized I didn't introduce it in the beginning. Is that Nomad Nation have met Marilyn in Amsterdam at the FIGT conference, which is Families in Global Transition conference, which I highly, highly recommend to anybody who's interested in living abroad. It's a fascinating conference, and we have met through. I would have never met you, Marilyn, if I wasn't online and following FIGT for so long.
I was so thrilled. And then we sat together during that one session.
Yeah, it was
That was
amazing.
amazing. So yeah, I think that we know how to use it in these amazing ways and to make these relationships matter, not at the expense of our in real life people, but instead to enhance all of that.
Yeah, definitely. Because yeah, I'm so happy that you brought up that because there's still a bit of resistance. I was just talking about it last week with some friends regarding social media, and at the end of the day, it brings more positive things than it harms. And whatever we don't want to be out there, we're in control of it. I don't believe that we're not in control of what we put online. It's our choice to have a private life or not, and we should respect it. But once we decide to be there, we can still control what we're putting there.
So true, so true. I rarely will post things about my kids. When I do, I ask them. Um, I have written about their birds because, because that has been a big thing. But that was when they were younger and they were all fine with that. But yeah, you pick what you choose, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be at the expense of everything
Yeah.
being public.
Yeah, thank you so much again for that. And, I would still want to know more about your repatriation experience, because that's something that a lot of us might have to face with one day. Can you take us to your time when we had to come back to the US and realize that this is your country? How did it go for you?
Oh, such a good question. Even the question takes me back to really difficult days. We left the warmth and palm trees and the call to prayer of Egypt, and we came to a country that for me felt cold. It felt, for all the beauty in this area, it was so unfamiliar to me. We went into winter for the first time. I didn't know how to dress in winter. So besides just the emotional, there was the practical.
Mm.
It was a difficult time. I I I don't know that I'm even the right person because I feel like I did it so poorly. I wish
What would you do again if you had to do it
right.
again?
So great question. I I would I would try and find places to plug in and try and merge those two worlds quicker
Mm-hmm.
than I was able. Now I say that, but I moved to a part of the country where change is not something that's easy for people. I will still meet people all the time in this area, not in Boston and Cambridge itself, but more outside of the area, but still in Massachusetts. People came on the Mayflower boat. That's how far their family generations go back. I've never lived in a place where people don't realize they have a culture. You'll talk to people and they say, no, other people have a culture, but I don't. So some of those things were naturally going to be difficult for me. I think living in the small town that we lived in was not the best idea. But even then, all of these things feel like, okay, they happen for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
If we hadn't lived there, then some of our best friends we wouldn't have met, who really did embrace us and who really did listen and remove some of the obstacles of belonging. Whenever I went to this friend's house, I felt like I belonged, even though we had so many differences in our backgrounds. So, what would I say to people? Oh, don't be like me. Don't be like me. You know, be more willing to accept your current reality.
And were you resisting?
I really was.
Yeah. That's
I
actually
couldn't
the
believe I
case
was
in
here.
both. That's often the case of difficult integration, be it at home or abroad. As
Yes.
soon as we resist, there's more obstacles that come up to us.
Absolutely. As soon as and you're absolutely right, no matter where you are. The interesting thing was I met people who were like me in Egypt, who were from other countries and just could not adjust. And I would look at them with pity. And then here a few years later, I was doing the same. But in this country where I legally belonged, but my
So
heart.
what did you do to go past that and start to feel like you belong?
I moved to Phoenix.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. For all the people love Boston, for me, I arrived, it was 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, so the weather was important for you.
Yes. And I arrived and there were palm trees and there was heat and I thought, I'm okay. I can breathe. I can live. I don't have to try so hard. So it was so interesting.
But culturally, you still find it easier in Phoenix than Boston?
Isn't that odd?
I don't know about Phoenix, but at least my image of it, because I was in Tucson and the perception I have, is not such an international place.
Oh, I think
and Boston is
right.
And Boston is
Right?
at least more than Phoenix. So how come you could belong more?
It was close to Mexico. We got over the international border. We had a lot of friends that were. I worked with Navajo and Hopi tribes, and so that was a whole other thing for me. And I worked with a lot of people from Mexico, and so I did have that. Whereas my colleagues in Boston at the time were born and raised in this area. Now, see, that's completely different now. Now, I'm in Cambridge, and on the way, on the subway, I see people from all over the world. I'm involved with some projects in the Muslim community that are just incredible. So it's so different. But isn't that funny that this place that on the surface would look like it would not be a fit? And people even said that to us before we left. They were like, Phoenix, are you kidding? We just ended up making such good friends. People were really friendly.
Oh, people are very friendly there.
So
They're very friendly, that's for sure. But
I don't know.
Interesting. But why was it like consciously you knew you would feel better in Phoenix? Was it the weather or something else?
I think you're absolutely right. I think there was a visceral response to the weather.
Okay.
And I think with that visceral response, I physically relaxed.
And people underestimate that. This is like the third interview I have, and I'm realizing it's amazing how much I'm learning through all these interviews, how weather has an impact on people.
Yes.
It's huge, and we should not underestimate. So it's important to not think that it's like a secondary thing, because we adapt all the time, but our bodies sometimes do not accept certain things, and we must be aware of it and just listen to our bodies sometimes.
That is so right. That is so right. And you are absolutely right. That was what it was in Phoenix. It wasn't other things. It was that the weather was reminiscent of these places I loved and these places where I fit.
Interesting.
And so somehow, and even to this day, I'm sitting. I don't know what New York is like today, but I'm sitting in Cambridge and it's freezing. And it's bright sunshine outside, but it's really cold. And my body doesn't respond to that. So even though there are these other things that I'm incredibly grateful for, in terms of my body feeling at home, that hasn't yet happened.
Before we say goodbye, is there one last message you want to share briefly?
It's more, I think it would be to just repeat something I've said in the past, not necessarily on this show, but I think our journeying reality is connecting a multicultural past to a meaningful present. And I think that's just, it's our journeying reality. In other words, it's something that we're continually doing. And I would say that would be my final word is be okay with that. Be okay with that being your reality, that sometimes it feels less like they connect, other times it feels more, but always it's in process.
Wonderful. That's a beautiful message to end with. And Nomad Nation, I would love you to check out Marilyn's book. Could you tell us your book's title?
Right, so it's called Between Worlds, Essays on Culture and Belonging. It's available at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, at Books and Such, at a few other places.
And on Tandem Nomads, I will put the link on Amazon on this episode's page so that you can get it directly on Amazon.
Thank you.
Here we go. And how can we find you?
So you can find me at communicatingacrossboundariesblog.com, and I write about communicating across the boundaries of faith and culture.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Marilyn. This was such an inspiring discussion that we had together, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. This was really an honor.
Nomad Nation, I hope that you were inspired by the story and these great insights that our guests shared with us today. We are going to have our 50th episode coming up very soon. Oh my God, I'm so excited about it because I don't think that I would have been able to keep on doing all these episodes and working on them and connecting with all these amazing guests if it wasn't for you, if I didn't know that you were out there listening. Because of that, I wanted to thank you and also give you a chance to share your voice this time with us. Share your voice and join the 50th episode voice party. So this is what I'm offering to you. Send me a little audio of 3 to 5 minutes that you can record on your phone or on your computer via, for example, QuickTime Player. It's very easy to set up. So send it to me by email or via WeTransfer.com, which is a great platform to send documents to the email connect@tandemnomads.com. And you just tell me in 3 to 5 minutes who you are and why you listen to Tandem Nomads, what you like about it, but also don't hesitate to share any extra insight you would like to share with us. And if you have also a blog or a link you want to share, feel free. So I'm so much looking forward to this, to our voice party together. I'm going to collect all your messages and put them in the 50th episode of Tandem Nomads. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. And do not hesitate to reach out and talk to you very soon.